Hello, everyone. Thank you to joining us this morning, this sunny morning. So I suppose it's quite hard for everyone to stay in front of this of our own PC for this next 2 hours. But I hope it will be interesting for everyone. I'm Cedric from TWEED, and I'm welcoming you from for the cluster, but as well for Flux50, because we are joining us about this journey of energy communities. It's the last working group and events that we organize jointly in this six-pack webinars. As you have seen, we have during 6 weeks presented you a series of different presentations, and we have discovered the technologies and the tools that we need to implement in energy communities. We have looked for the impact of the regulation on energy communities. We have looked as well for different projects from European Commission, but as well for Belgium. 2 weeks ago, it was more a Belgium R&D players discovery that we have done. And last time it was more the hardware and the SMEs that have presented. And so this webinar, we have decided to propose you a workshop where we will try to discover more the business cases for the energy communities. And we will work together. After 2 presentations, we will work with a mural. We will explain you after. We will send you the link, so don't be afraid. It's quite easy tool, and we will try to work together to build business cases and to have information about it. So welcome everyone. This webinars is a part of the Smart Energy project. It's an European project where different clusters from Europe are working together to propose you some services. The objective was to make some exchange between players, between SMEs and R&D players, between 4 countries: Italy, France, Belgium, and Hungary. For sure, the COVID situation has obliged us to make some digital way for this year, but we hope that next year or the end of the year, we can have real missions to propose you. We have invited in October the different players for Flux50 main event, if we can organize it. And we have the possibility as well to go to the trade fair Enlit in Italy as well. So 2 possibilities, opportunities, and we hope that the COVID situation will be handled for that part, and to offer you some exchange, because we can offer you some help to do this exchange program. So I hope that the next phase of the project will be in real. So this today we will have 2 presentations. And after we will go through 2 different workshop with mural, and the first part will a SWOT analysis, and the second part will be a business cases situation, and every time with a feedback of ourselves, and we'll wrap up, and in the end a conclusion for the 6-pack on energy communities. So I don't wait for the first presentation, and we are very happy to have Rita de Smitter that work for Delta EE company, and they are very strong about the energy communities. And so she will present the LCA on energy communities as a strategic tool for business model. So Rita, I let you the virtual floor.
Thank you, Cedric. I will share my screen. Hi everybody, thank you Cédric and Renaud for organizing this. So I will quickly introduce myself before starting. So I'm Rita.
We don't see Rita, we don't see your presentation. I don't know if you have launched it. So.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, we see it, not in full picture, but
can you see it
yes,
now?
Perfect. I let you.
Thank you. So I'm Rita Desmeter, working at Delta EE as business developer and project manager within the Local Energy System Research Service. So we look at different business models, we look at the different value stream for local energy systems, and we also gather data across Europe to monitor the space. About Delta EE, we are research and consultancy company helping organizations to develop strategies, business model, customers proposition for the energy transition. We do this through subscription research services and through consultancy. In terms of expertise, we cover a wide range of topics, such as new energy business model, hydrogen, flexibility and energy storage, distributed power, heat, local energy system, electric vehicle, and digital energy, such as connected home. And in terms of presence, we have offices in Edinburgh, London, Cambridge, Paris, and then people working from Netherlands, Denmark, Japan, and Australia. So for our topic of the day, I'm going to speak about the different types of energy communities emerging and developing in Europe, and then I'll introduce the life cycle analysis for energy communities as a strategic tool. So there is a strong interest, a growing interest in energy communities in Europe. And this has been translated in some European markets to an increase in project creation, as well as the focus on development of business models where players are seeking replicability and scalability of economically viable projects. So renewable energy are not new. And in markets such as Denmark, Germany, or the UK, there are some projects that are as old as 40 years old. So we have a combination of triggers and drivers that can explain the scale of interest across stakeholders along the energy value chain. So we have triggers, such as the two directives from the Clean European package, the renewable energy communities in the Renewable Energy Directive RED II, and then the citizen energy community in the Electricity Market Directive, the EMD. So these two forms of energy communities must be translated into national legislation. The first one was by December 2020, and then the RED II by June 2021. So we're really in the middle of it. And then we are seeing drivers, which are long-term processes that changes the environmental structure of an energy community, such as increased sense of climate change emergency, the development of decentralized generation with lower prices, higher efficiencies, the development of markets, such as the flexibility markets. There's also the progressive phasing out of subsidies, such as the feed-in tariff, or the development of technologies, such as energy management system, asset control, etc. So thanks to this combination of triggers and drivers, we are increasingly seeing new projects at new stages of incremental development with more complex forms of business models and technology utilized, such as collective self-consumption, depending on the national rules, local energy market using peer-to-peer or even blockchain. And these different type of energy communities business model are at various stages of their life. As we can see on the map here, European member states give different names and frameworks for collective self-consumption, depending as well on the business model. So policies and regulation are challenged in their design as lessons from pilots are starting to reflect, but there are still uncertainties. So we know that first, Belgium is a market leader in terms of energy communities. I guess this can be explained by the fact that this is the host country of RESCOOP, the European Federation of Energy Cooperative. Under the impulse of its members, policies are favorable to the development of energy communities, allowing stakeholder engagement and partnership to bring expertise. There's another factor, such as energy prices that are expensive in Belgium, which allow energy communities to offer competitive price using renewable generation. We're seeing as well the Netherlands, which is highly developed with legal requirements to share revenue from renewable generation. The country is also pioneering innovative approaches to energy communities, using technologies and new way of community governance. For example, any new development of generation must share revenue with the local community. So this is positive in terms of sharing revenue with local areas, but also makes partnering harder as there is the acceptance that an effort is already being made. So Germany and Denmark have high level of community-owned wind generation. However, there are large regulatory barriers to develop into more innovative business model. So Germany has a historic legacy of community-owned wind generation, with the German Renewable Energy Act encouraging citizens' energy companies by giving them privilege, such as temporary financial security deposit reduction and clearing price in the National Wind Subsidy Scheme. But energy cooperatives are also challenged by the complex regulations, the increased competition from large variety of actors, and strong market orientation. If I speak about France, we have very low electricity prices, complex regulation, difficult economics related to network tariff, but the market, for example, for collective self-consumption and energy communities is growing with different type of business models such as energy cooperative, community production assets and exports, collective self-consumption. So those are often fertile grounds to test and pilot diverse technological and social innovation. I will not mention all countries, but for example, Spain is really taking off as well because of the end of taxation on self-consumed energy and the introduction of remuneration mechanisms for the electricity excess and the definitions for the conditions of energy community, which has created opportunities. I will just finish with UK because that is a question I often have, which is very unique in the fact that it's not adopting the EU Clean Energy Package on energy communities, but there are domestic incentives and a general willingness to partner. So there's no reflection of the recent EU directives into the UK law relative to energy communities, but stakeholders are open to work with them. And we have Wales and Scotland that are showing interesting developments, with Scotland in particular funding CARES that enables their development of energy communities. And there are lots of independent initiatives such as electricity bill and some aspects energy communities can be ahead of other markets thanks to innovation advances, such as the participation to selected flexibility markets, and this specifically at the distribution level. So energy communities can be viewed from the point of view of the architecture of a system. And in terms of business model, we are seeing it from unbundled system with distributed renewable integration, with a total export of the energy generated to the distribution grid, until, as we go on the right of the axis, fully bounded system, such as islandable microgrids. And then in between, we have all the business models such as collective self-consumption. So in Europe, we are seeing 4 energy communities business models that we can classify in first generation and export, where members own generation assets. Then we are seeing the cooperative energy suppliers, where community or publicly owned supply companies where members own shares in generation assets. We are seeing the collective self-consumption in many European countries now, where members pool generation assets amongst a group of consumers with the aim of optimizing the self-consumption within the community. And then we have virtual allocation, so the type of peer-to-peer model, where the generation assets shared virtually between members. So today in Europe, the dominant business model of energy communities is still based on exporting the totality of the electricity generated to the distribution grid. And then very often they still receive subsidies such as the feed-in tariff. In terms of value stream, energy communities are living through different value streams, such as member acquisition and asset development, asset optimization, where energy communities often undertake projects combining energy efficiencies and saving program, education programs, and can partner with a third party to choose the appropriate technology for asset optimization and the self-balance. Then we're seeing the energy transaction within a community that lowers the need to buy electricity from an energy suppliers. Resilience, so this is less often, but this is something that will develop over time. And then interface with value systems such as flexibility, monetizing the flexibility of assets with the help of an aggregator. So value generation within energy communities and the long-term viability differ depending on the business model. So we say that the more the system is bounded, the more an energy community can access all different type of value stream. So now for the life cycle analysis of energy communities. Well, when thinking about energy communities, I thought about what they are inherently. The energy communities are clusters, which is a gathering of individual SMEs, municipalities, and other stakeholders sometimes. So making the parallel between energy communities and clusters, I used the academic work made on cluster life cycles to make this parallel and analyze at which state of development different energy communities business model can be. So we are seeing the different phase: emergence, growth phase, stable, and then the decline phase. So how it look like? I will start with the end, with the decline phase, where we are seeing the most common business model for energy communities in Europe, which is incentive-based energy communities with feed-in tariff. And then as we go, we see on the stable phase, cooperative suppliers. On the growth phase, we are seeing the different type of collective self-consumption at the district level, which is easier because of the network tariff that are not debatable. And then the collective self-consumption at the building level. And at the emergence phase, we are seeing market-based energy communities utilizing, for example, flexibility, peer-to-peer, etc. And then in terms of strategy, we can see that if an energy community is at the beginning of the decline phase, it can adapt to become, for example, cooperative supplier, or it can renew its business model, trying to self-consume with collective self-consumption. And then if it's at the end, for example, of a feed-in tariff contract, it can completely transform and decide to become more market-based, engaging, for example, with a local energy market. So I'm gonna show you an example of incentive-based energy community, which is Huerta Solar Amigos de la Tierra. This is in Spain, in Leganés, close to Madrid, and it's an energy community creating revenue through the feed-in tariff. So a model that we are seeing typically in Europe, where they exploit solar plants on the roof of a warehouse. And then for this, they receive feed-in tariff for around 30 years. In terms of strength, this provide the energy communities with a predictable return on investments based on this long-term contract with the income generated by the feed-in tariff for the 30 years. However, in terms of weaknesses, it's dependent on the subsidies. So this gives the opportunity, if we are going back to our life cycle, to renew, because they are still in the middle of their feed-in tariff contract, to renew to self-consume. So they could transform, for example, renew to a collective self-consumption scheme. So I will show you an example of this with an example in France, which is called Harmonieux. So this is based in a lovely islands on the west coast. And here, what we are seeing is the energy supplier ENGIE that inaugurated this scheme in 2020 with gathering the inhabitants, the local authorities, and then they partner with ENGIE for the supply and TICO supplying a battery. So this project is set at district level with 5 households that are producing the energy and sharing it across 23 individual houses. So the energy is generated by the PVs installed on the roof, and then the participants, all the participants form a PMO to be a collective self-consumption. The index key, which is the proportion of energy allocated to each participant, is provided to the DNO and is dynamic, so almost in real time with a 5-minute interval, thanks to a software developed by ENGIE that optimizes the system. And this choosing to activate or deactivate the charging of the battery and the boilers at the best moment. So in terms of strength, this project has the benefit to use the expertise and technology provided by ENGIE and its partner. ENGIE manages all the admin sites for the creation of the PMO and contract with the local DNO Enedis. However, in terms of weaknesses from ENGIE's point of view, the admin and organizational effort is significant and may not be justified by the revenue. So there's a need to optimize even more the system. So now we have seen Huerta, collective self-consumption, and well, what we are seeing, it illustrates the change in the energy market that takes place mostly on the low and medium voltage, where decentralized production, local storage and self-consumption develop, but where the factors of instability are also triggered, so like congestion, voltage surge, etc. So the capacity to traditional adjustment top to bottom is less effective. So to address all problems of integrating decentralized production to the network, I will present you a last case study in Switzerland, where the DSO IEM, in collaboration with the municipality of Capriasca, developed a series of programs to enhance the regional solar and hydroelectric production. So the municipality of Capriasca, so this is in the south part of Switzerland, installed a PV plant in the village on the roof of a local kindergarten. However, it was not fully exploited during the summer, and the self-consumption potential of the kindergarten was limited because most of the production takes place during school summer holidays when the local consumption is low. So the idea was to create a community by networking the buildings with the surrounding houses. So 18 houses are involved that can exchange energy with each other instead of sending the energy to the network. So this is possible thanks to the presence of a battery that recharges the energy with the energy produced and not consumed. So the technology of blockchain here is used, making the smart meters to communicate with each other by coordinating without a central entity. So from a system with large exchanges, easier to control manually, we are seeing here a scenario with small distributed agents that are coordinated automatically. The energy consuming appliances in the houses are mainly the heat pump and the boiler, and they are connected to the smart meters that can turn them on when we want more consumption and turn them off when we want there to be no consumption. So here, the collaboration between the tech company and energy suppliers and the presence of flexible loads make the case for community participants. So the participants save on the energy consumption through a dynamic tariff given by the local energy market. And in terms of strength, it gives availability of the flexible loads, help balance the community. Local incumbents took part in the scheme with eased network management and then for quite extended periods of the day, the community manages to be almost self-sustainable. So this is it for my presentation. Thank you very much. And if you have questions.
Thank you, Rita. Very interesting presentation. We see that Europe is leading the way for sure. I have a small question. You mentioned that there is a potential service of the energy community is the energy savings. Do you see in Europe that an energy community can provide some services linked with energy savings? Because we are hearing that energy communities, because they can provide maybe a reduction of the price, there is a rebound effect. So they are consuming more in the end. So what is your opinion about that?
That's a very interesting question. I think as we just saw in the latest case study, optimization is key. And the first optimization in an ideal world, the first optimization starts at the house level, and then the second optimization will start at the community level with this type of software that allows smart meter to talk with each other, and then we could see this type of optimization with the distribution network and at the flexibility at the wider network level. So to avoid this rebound effect, technologies here and software development, the softwares will be key. And I think there's some pilot project around Europe, but this is still very, it's still at the research level and the development level.
Yeah. Okay, so with the software, so with the monitoring, they can see the consumption, and with the consumption, they are aware they are consuming. So maybe they are sensibilized to reduce it. So with the monitoring, let's say.
Absolutely. Yeah. A key of the success of energy communities is what we can do in terms also of knowledge sharing. And this is why we're seeing lots of projects where there's also information given to the community and sensibilization. Very often people have already that idea that they would like to participate in accelerate the energy transition, but it's also a really good way to educate what is energy, how do we use it, why, at which moment, how does that benefit or penalize the larger network. So education here is key, absolutely.
Thank you, Rita. So you stay with us for the second part with the working group. But for now, we have an interesting presentation, more technical, where we see some different way to organize these energy communities, hybrid way. And so we have Ruben Beitens from TWEED, I don't know the international name of. So Ruben, I'll let you the floor. Yes.
Thank you. I will share my screen. I will...
Perfect.
So good morning, everybody. My name is Ruben Batens. I'm a senior consultant at TWEED. I'm a consultant in the teams called Strategy and Policy. So I'm mainly working for governments to develop policies, and I'm mainly working for, let's say, advising their long-term strategies with respect to renewable energy. So I'll be talking a bit about, I'll be challenging a bit some stories about revenue models of energy communities, in the sense that energy communities are always or often presented as a hybrid form of organizing your energy sector. But what I want to show is that maybe challenge a few revenue streams, in the sense that showing them, are they future-proof or not? And if they're not future-proof, it might be that what we now see as a hybrid solution might be, in the sense, a bit of a hype that will automatically disappear in the future. A short word, but I'll just keep this short. What's TWEED? TWEED is a service company, an advisory company, a consultant company focused on renewable energy. We are a team of, let's say, 100 experts, mainly engineers and economists, but also a lot of data scientists, because we provide software for operating and analyzing renewable energies. We are founded around 20 years ago as a spin-off of IMEC, and by now we have 6 offices, mainly in Europe, but we also have an office in India and one in Cape Town. And we are so far involved with developing over 90 gigawatts of renewables, mainly solar and wind, but of course lately also storage. And we're involved in a lot of mini-grid projects in Africa. What do I want to present? I split it up in four topics, or 4 parts of my presentation. The first 2 will be very short, and I hope this is all repetition for you. The first will be a very small introduction on how does the traditional electricity sector works. The second one will be then, okay, if we talk about energy communities, what are we talking about? And then I want to dive into the concept, or the revenue model of, some call it collective self-consumption, sometimes it's called sharing energy, sometimes it's peer-to-peer, and they're often used for the same concepts, or let's say these definitions, they're not black and white, they're a bit mixed. So I'll focus on this revenue scheme and try to challenge it with respect to its future-proofness. And then, of course, I try to come to some conclusions. So first, the traditional energy sector. How do you buy electricity? The way the sector in Europe is let's say organized is, if you start browsing on the website of the European Union, you'll see a keyword, and the keyword is always unbundling. Unbundling is separating activities where there's a possibility of competing actors, separating them from activities where there is no competition possible. No competition means there is a monopoly. Usually it's related to the ownership of the grid, the distribution grid or the transmission grid. And the goal of this unbundling is to make sure that everybody is able to get access to the grid, and to make sure there is a fair competition. Fair competition with respect to that everybody who is willing to, let's say, organize renewable generation or non-renewable generation, or supplying power to end consumers, that they're able to do so, and that they're able to compete so to do this at the lowest cost. And if you talk about generation, of course, everybody knows there is this emission trading system, which automatically introduces some CO2 tax in our electricity grid. But also, of course, member states are generally using the electricity bill to have an extra revenue, to have a tax which is used to fund renewable energy or to fund energy saving policies. What's the result of this? The result of this is that the electricity sector is quite complex. A household that buys energy buys it from a supplier, but this supplier has to buy is power again from generators. These generators inject their power into the grid, which the grid delivers the power to the household. But also you pay the supplier, but through the supplier, you're also paying for the grid and you're paying the taxes to society. If you look at, I will always be using some numbers which are related to Belgium, because those are the numbers that I know best. If you, for example, so this means in the scheme, for supply and generation, there is competition. For the grid, the DSO and the TSO, it's a monopoly that is regulated by a regulator. And the society aspect is in many aspects included. It is included in the emission tax. It's included that the energy bill is used to fund policies, but also that there is access for everybody. If you express this in euros, an average household in Belgium pays 900 euro per year for its electricity. Around 270 is for the supplier, which the supplier, of course, used to buy power from generators. Around 230 is used to access the grid, and around 400 euros goes to society. Of course, there is the VAT, which is already 20% of the electricity bill, but there are, of course, extra taxes. If in the system, for example, you try to install a PV system, if you install a PV system behind the meter, you save money. You save money on the supply and the generation, you save money on the grid tariffs, and you save money on the energy taxes. In two ways, you save money through self-consumption. Actually, self-consumption just means that it's actually an energy efficiency measure. You just consume less. And there is the value of grid injection. In Belgium, we don't have a fixed feed-in tariff. It's just what the supplier is willing to pay for your power, that's what you get. If you look at the numbers in Belgium, that means that if you buy power, you pay around 25 cents per kilowatt hour. That means if you have self-consumption, you also gain 25 cents per kilowatt hour. If you inject it to the grid, you get only 4 cents per kilowatt hour. This means on average, if a PV owner, if a house installs PV, it profits around 360 euro per year, of which 170 comes from the supplier, 70 comes from the grid tariffs, and 120 comes from society. The complex thing about this unbundling, and that's what we've seen in the previous scheme, the complex thing is there is always a second order effect. A part of the energy system is a zero-sum game. For example, grid tariffs, the DSO is regulated. If you install a PV system and you pay less for the grids, this cost for the grid has to be paid by somebody else because the cost remains exactly the same. It means if you include the zero-sum effect, it means that actually from this 360 euro of profit, around 140 is paid through the energy bill of other people that have no PV. So there is a shift. Let's say what one household gains, some other households have to pay extra. If you then look at energy communities, and this will be a bit repetition of the previous one, so I'll do it fast. If you start Googling energy communities, the vocabulary changes completely. The vocabulary becomes that it is focused on collective action and city-driven action. And what does this action mean? This action means that the consumer will be a part of the generation, or it will take ownership of generation. It will start to take actions with respect to consumption or energy savings. It will start doing energy sharing or really sell electricity, and it may provide flexibility services. If you then look at how does this look like, you still have the same European electricity market completely unbundled. And actually the first thing is that it's collective and city-driven. That means you are not one household that is a member of a big system. What you start to do is many households starts to act together. They will let's say, cling each other, to connect each other to each other, and they will become a member of a community that will start operating together in the system. How may this look like? They may start working together on generation, and they will form one organization with some generation assets. They may work together with respect to consumption and the energy saving measures that has been shown, but also they may share energy among each other. They may work together on supply and form an energy cooperative that becomes a supplier. Or, for example, they may start providing flexibility services to the grid by working together. What do I want to focus on is the idea or the notion of sharing energy, sometimes called peer-to-peer, sometimes called collective self-consumption. There are different notions of these three concepts, but what I'll try to present lays closer to collective self-consumption. What's the notion, or what is it about? It's literally two people sharing or multiple households sharing energy. And I'll use the example of there is a member with PV, and of course, he sometimes has too much PV, and there are members without PV. And actually what they're trying to do is that the members with PV that has excess PV, he will try to deliver his power to the members without PV, and the members without PV, they pay the member with PV for his power. What's the idea behind this? Of course, that if this member just sells his power to the market, he only gets 4 cents, but on the same time, this member for the same kilowatt hour and probably even for the same, let's say, electrons, is paying 25 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's like, okay, why does this member just not buy all the power from this member at the same cost? So imagine you're trying to share energy, and you try to recover all energy bill commons in the sense that by sharing energy, you try to eat the margin of the supplier, which is natural. At the end, you're just selling and buying energy, and this supplier is a middleman. Why does the middleman need some profit on this if you can do it peer-to-peer among each other? So there is some revenue streams in eating the margin of the supplier. I often hear saying that by doing collective self-consumption, you should be able to recover the grid tariffs, because if you share energy, it reduces the use of the grid and it reduces the cost of the grid. So you recover the grid tariffs and you recover energy taxes. I often hear saying that you should be able to recover energy taxes because at the end, what you're trying to do is you're trying to replace, for example, a subsidy scheme of the government by making solar power more valuable. And at the end, you're supporting community energy. If you would do this, and if you would have this power completely under a collective self-consumption scheme, the member with PV could profit 550 euros per year. The members without PV, they don't lose anything because they're still paying exactly the same energy bill, but instead of buying it or paying it to the supplier or the grid operator, they're paying it to the member of PV. And you eat, of course, for example, the margin of the supply. You eat, of course, in taxes, and you pay less grid tariffs, but these grid tariffs have to be paid by something else. So actually, you're moving 330 euros of value to other people, the people that are not member of your community. Of course, this 540 euro never goes alone to the member with PV. At the end, it's about working together. So this the idea is that this 540 euro is spread among all members of the community. But then, of course, you should not forget that you are still part of this bigger system. You're still part of a supplier which will, whose services will evolve. You are still part of a system where you use the grid, where the grid is regulated, where the tariffs are regulated. And you're still part of a system where society introduces taxes in energy bills. And these are in the future always about to change. They are not fixed in ground. And all these three elements, there are some trends which we see in many countries which are evolving in a certain way. So first evolution is that, okay, imagine that all the taxes and levies in our power bill or electricity bill are reformed, and they're just reformed to a simple CO2 tax. If you are reformed to a simple CO2 tax, it means that some taxes will already be recovered without being organized as an energy community. It means that this tax will already be recovered by just injecting power. In fact, your grid injection will become worth more. It will be worth around 7 cents, in the Belgium case, around 7 cents per kilowatt hour, where before it was only worth 4 cents per kilowatt hour. That means if you set up this community and if you set up this collective share, collective self-consumption, and then government changes the taxes in an energy bill, and in my view, in a positive way, it changes all taxes to a CO2 tax, which is what we all wish for. Suddenly your value drops. You had a value foreseen of 540 euro, but this value drops to 335 euro, which is around 1/3 less. Of course, some people benefit from it in the sense that the other households pay less for your self-consumption scheme. That's if society changes its tax system. But of course, what if also the supplier changes his way of working? And he says, look, everybody is saying that consumers should be much more an active actor in the market. Everybody knows that there is a dynamic market with hourly prices that differ. What if the supplier says, look, to all my clients, I will provide them with the dynamic market prices, 24/7, variable prices. And that means that if you introduce variable prices equal to the market price, again, that for the supply side, grid offtake and grid injection will be valued exactly the same. The only thing that will differ is that the supplier will ask for a lump sum fee just to handle all the power. But again, if this is introduced, and at the end, it's a positive thing because you want to activate your consumers, the value of grid injection increases again, and the value of self-consumption drops. So again, your system loses value. We started at 540 euro. It dropped to 330 through the CO2 taxes. And now again, it dropped to 210. Why? There is no margin anymore at the supply side to be eaten, which is, of course, value that you lose. At this point, we already lost half of our value of collective self-consumption. And then there is a third form in the sense that we've discussed the supplier, we've discussed the taxes. There's a third party involved, the grid operator. And actually, if you look at the grid operator and the grid tariffs, we see that over 80% of the grid tariffs is actually a recuperation of historical costs. Over 80% of the tariffs have nothing to do with the local grid impact. It has nothing to do with grid costs occurring today. It's purely financing of all debts. And that means that, and this is what is being discussed, well, it has been decided, for example, in Belgium in the last year, that grid tariffs are reformed to a capacity tariff. There is a main capacity tariff you pay for just having access to the grid. And that means the grid tariffs cannot be recovered anymore. It means again that nothing changes with the value of grid injection, but the value of self-consumption drops significantly, and that you're left with a value of collective self-consumption of 40. So we come from 540 euros. In the current law that we have today, society changes its taxes to a positive thing, a CO2 tax. Supplier introduces variable tariffication. The grid operator introduces a capacity tariff. And actually 95% of the value of collective self-consumption just disappeared. That means that it might look a very interesting revenue model, but you're very much influenced by the bigger system around you. So what's the key message I want to give based on this example? And I see this is a bit deformed. The first key message I want to give is that you should never forget that your energy community is part of a bigger system. It might well be that inside your community, you have some rules that you want that you apply on trading energy, but these internal rules can be strongly impacted by the bigger system around you. And to keep this in mind, it means that you should never build a business case based on getting exceptions in rules. If you try to build a business model, I very often see that it's based on getting an exemption, getting not having to apply to certain rules, but exceptions never last forever. And exceptions always transfer costs to households outside the community. And at the end, transferring costs to outside the community, it's what goes against the idea of setting up an energy community. And in my idea, the focus should always be on trying to create stability and not trying to create profit, in the sense that what's the downside of this complex energy sector is that it's fast moving. It has very short-term contracts, and these short-term contracts make it very difficult to secure investments. And what you should try to focus on is trying to replace these short-term contracts with very long-term agreements, which are based on the community trust and which are based on a willingness to pay, that you're actually willing to pay more for the same value that you get before. And in this way, you create stability and certainty for your actions. And if you want to read more about this, I can remind you of a very old book. There's an old book from the 1990s from Elinor Ostrom. Elinor Ostrom is an economist that won the Nobel Prize for it. But it's a book focused on collective action and focused on how to create, let's say, an organization that becomes independent of the exogenous, the bigger system around you. It's a rather big book. It's around 300 pages, but it reads quite fluently. So I can recommend the reading. And that's where I conclude my presentation.
Thank you very much, Ruben, for this very interesting presentation. And you take time to really go deep in the business cases, and it was very interesting to see the difference between the micro, let's say, optimization and the macro view. So it's very, very great, and it's really the core. Just to explain, we have created a platform that's called the Ceracle in Wallonia, when we have more than 10 projects, and really the objective is to see the micro view of each project, because they try to optimize their own, let's say, value case in their own way. But in the end, we have to create something in global and the regional level that is sustainable and get value for the grid as well. But because if you are just creating something that is a sharing of energy without having some software devices that get value and that offer something for the grid, you are not, you have some problem for the future, and you have explained it very clearly. So very thank you. Yes, that's it for the two presentation, and I think it's great because we have some ideas to go for the workshop. And I give the word to my colleague Paul that will explain you the functioning of the workshop. We will use a tool called Mural. Paul?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
And can you see my screen? Oh, perfect. I will now take a few minutes to explain you how to use Mural, which is a digital workplace to have visual collaboration. So we will put in the chat a link to connect on this page for the first exercise. So you just have to fill in your name and to put on enter as a visitor. So we have, in fact, created two SWOT analyses to put strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the energy communities. Persons with a surname with a first letter from A to M can go on the left, group A, and the other ones with a surname with a first letter from N to Z can go on the group B, on the right of the screen. And to move easily on the screen, you can use on the right button of the screen a tool to zoom in, to zoom out, and to move on the screen. After, to put your idea, it's very simple. You just have to click on the right bottom of your mouse and to add a sticky note to put keywords or little sentences. And after, you can click on the sticky note and move it on the empty place of the board. If needed, you can also use the command Control Z to go back. And we will have, in fact, two facilitators for this exercise. We will have Renaud from TWEED and also Jan from Flux50, and they will give you some live feedbacks for the SWOT analysis. And after, we will also have summarize from the whole exercise. And we will put for this exercise a timer. We will have 15 minutes to do this together. And after this first exercise, we already said we will have another exercise, which will be a business model canvas. You will also have a bit explanation about this after, but I can already say that you will have some written explanation on the right of the screen in Mural. I think I have already finished. So let's start it. You will have now the link in the chat. Have fun and think well.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Thank you. So, of course, yes, indeed, we have sent the link of Mural on the chat. So, in the bottom of your screen, you have the button conversation, and then you will it will show the link. Just click on the link, and yes, I see that many people are already inside. You arrive on the Mural page, as you said. So the exercise will be here to make the SWOT. So Jan and me will take yes, there is a lot of mouse. So Jan and me will take the animation of this. The goal is really just to place on this SWOT what you think to be the strengths and the weakness of in common way, in a general way, the energy communities that have to be posed at both, and as well the opportunities and the threats in the bottom of your group. So we just make two groups in order to make clear and not to have too many too many mouse at the same place. So you can go where Paul asked you to go, or just where there is not too much mouses. Voilà. So please keep your micro off. Jan and me will just ask you some question when we ask when we see something to understand. After your work, we will make some summary. Trying to make some summary. And so I will be for the group B and Jan will be for the group A. And in order to make the two experts with a very exciting speech, they propose you as a inspiring speech in front of this event, to critique and to give their opinion on what we noted. So keep focus general. So do not be afraid to put something wrong. That's the exercise. We don't see your name. We saw hippopotamus and sheep. So it's most of you are kind of animals. So it's not nominative. And voilà. Thank you. We'll let you a few minutes. So you have the zoom tool on the bottom right of the screen. So do not hesitate to make some zoom to go in somewhere, some different place.
We can see already a lot of activity on the mural. That's great to see. I see many strengths popping up. Very curious to read them all, discuss them a little bit with you.
Yes, the same for me. So the result of strength and the weakness, not so much. But that's good that maybe the people are going first to the positive and then to the negative. I see that sometimes the group A steal me some post-it, so let the post-it in the group B. Oh, it's a joke.
I see that within the strength, somebody has written independence of the grid. I'm very curious to have a short explanation of from that person why he or she thinks that independence of the grid is a strength and why you would try to reach it with this energy communities and energy sharing. Is it possible for the person who has written it to speak up?
It's from Group A.
Yes, from Group A, indeed.
Maybe it was anonymous person.
Do not hesitate also to think outside the box, as we say. Just maybe not focusing only on money, because maybe there is other opportunities. We will discuss that in the BMC business model Canva afterwards. But maybe there is something also outside what Ruben spoke about that can be also interesting to discuss as threats or opportunities. So do not hesitate to fill the B also, the B matrix. See many people on the A. It's not nominative, it's just to make more place. Yes, you have, I see that 7 minutes left. So I think maybe Jan, in maybe 3 minutes after the hand, we can start to make some conclusion of all parts.
Yeah, that's fine.
As a weakness, there is from the group B, there is a post-it with written too many actors involved in one project. Maybe is the one who wrote it can give a little bit explanation and switch the micro on and give some explanation about this, if it's okay for her, for him. Is it the types of actor maybe, or maybe just the number of people, scientists, people involved in the project of development? I don't know. Sometimes that can be also a break from something. I see that somebody spoke about the DSO, TSO society reaction, the reaction of the DSO and TSO, the society and the supplier. I don't know who wrote it, and if you want to give some explanation and as a treat in the group B, if you can maybe develop a little bit, it might be interesting to have more info about that. I see that Fabrice is close to this post-it. I will make the spy and go to see what is in the group A. Ah, yes, Fabrice.
I wrote something similar, but I was in group A.
Okay.
But just because the other day I was listening to a Delta EE podcast from an example in the US where they also had community level storage, and the DSO are sometimes a bit more conservative in the way they apprehend the grid. Like they want to be sure to have enough extra capacity in case of larger demands, and they see extra capacity in more conservative terms, like really assets they can control more readily on their side. So it might take some time to change like the way of thinking. I think that's a theme that comes back.
And was it an experience from Belgium or for?
No, it was in the US.
Okay.
In Vermont.
Thank you. I think we observe sometimes the same, because the grid operator is often responsible of the community, as Ruben said, and so yes, we heard often that, but as we discuss with them, as either in Flanders, in Brussels, or in Wallonia as well, we can see that they are more and more open to work to the develop project, but they want to be secure and to go safely in the assumption and the hypothesis making the law. So I saw also very often that in my group that the regulation is a weakness, that we are not very as quick as we should go, because we were one of the first region I saw to have a decree, basically in Wallonie, and now it takes since 3 years we have not the final juridic frame, and it's okay. That's because they want to make it very safe and very good, but for the community and technique or companies or actors, it's a little bit some weakness, of course, of the development.
Renaud and Jan, before your conclusion, just a practical information. Ariane has sent a link in the conversation space from the Zoom. Don't hesitate if you want some meetings with Rita or Ruben, because it was very interesting and they have a lot of to say, let's say. You can make some meetings with them if you use the tool from Flux50. So if you want a virtual meeting just in the end, so the matchmaking, it's 11:30, you can do it and use this link. Yeah.
Okay, I think we can start rounding up and giving a short summary of what you've been adding to this SWOT mural. If I start on the A side, on the left side, then I see 4 different topics basically within strengths. A very strong topic on the social cohesion and getting people together, getting people involved, bringing the power to the people, which is really the idea of the energy directive, the European Energy Directive. It's really involve the people more than it used to be, and I think this really is a strong asset for energy communities and energy sharing. As discussed with Ruben, several people still are convinced that the energy communities can save costs. I think on perhaps on a system level. It will be it will, if it were a lot of ifs and whens when Ruben was explaining it, but it really will depend on every case for its own. And a third strength that's popping up is really the increase of renewables and the way of thinking towards sustainability that is really encouraged by energy communities. That's very nice to see. If you switch to weaknesses there, one of the weaknesses that has been mentioned is really the legislation. It's unclear how you can do it, what you can do. There's still a rather long way to go in Flanders and in Belgium from the from setting up the law until the practical rollout of the energy communities. That will still take some time, and at the moment I understand that it's still very unclear how it would be going. Another weakness is the long-term engagement in long-term engagement in energy communities with an administrative hurdle, with the way of with a new way of working which has to be invented. That's definitely a difficulty that will be should be tackled as well. And opposite to the third topic for the strengths is also here the weakness here as well, the financial scheme and the business case for energy communities. If you look at the opportunities and the threats, for opportunities, it's definitely opportunity for sustainability and for more renewable energy. It's also an opportunity for energy management, strengthening the of reinforcing the local grid, managing the energy locally, and in that way creating system benefits. It's also very a great opportunity to strengthen the social ties and get people together and get them engaged in the energy sector. On the other hand, you have the threats. One threat is really the current system, which has to change and which can take a long time before it changes, both legislation, regulation, as well as the position of the government and the DSO and the regulator on the whole topic really has to move, and they have to make it possible to create or to set up energy communities. And a second threat is really also the social engagement. As you know, social commitments and social being friends with each other has its limits. So it can really it has to be sustainable for longer years. And that can be also a very tricky thing to set things up. People move, people change ideas. That's also something you have to think about. So thank you very much for the A side, and I'll leave it up to Renaud for the B side as well.
Thank you. There is something in common, Jan, with your group. It will be quickly because I have less posted, but I think in the strength and the weakness, we find again the strength of the ground we have here with a lot of existing hardware and software solutions. So we have the tool to implement this kind of community. Of course, we have to adapt. Of course, we have to develop more add-ons, more things, and to continue to be innovate, as we saw in the previous session. But we have here maybe also the strength and the skills to follow that in our countries. The other strength is the benefits, of course, for the climate and the environment due to more energy community, more energy capacity, green energy capacity, and also with more efficiency on the grid. We spoke about that. And also for the grid, we have less less losses, of course, but also more net stability, because we will try to face consumption and production as much as possible. For the weakness, we say, okay, as we discussed, the regulation is the weakness. Maybe that there is a lack of information of frame, but it's normal, it's the beginning, but still it takes some time, and sometimes I heard too many times. And I see a positive interest also that there is too much non-believers. So maybe we are every day in the same question and development, but there is also some people not believing in that. And I think maybe also the people who are the more concerned, that people living in their house, as we saw in all the slides, but they are not used to energy. They just pay. Sometimes they don't know how many they pay, but if we want to have them with the business case and the business project and the project as well, we have to maybe inform them. So that's a kind of interesting attention. For the opportunities, of course, we have the energy transition. We have to go that's a good lever, a good leitmotif to go further in the development of this. The opportunities is also the knowledge of the energy. So as I said, people will have to read the invoice of energy to see, okay, I auto consume that rate, so it's better than previously. That they will make some people also learning about energy, as Rita spoke about as well. And of course, something collective, an opportunity of collectivity, collective self-consumptions. There is something social behind that would be interesting. Either in companies, we saw that with some members in Wallonia, the companies sticking together, making some links, sharing some pool of mobility and things like this. And for the TWEED as well, of course, the financial incentive is a need for the business model to be implemented. But also, if there is not enough incentive, that won't be possible to see that, the business model, and as well as the regulation. If the regulation is not stable enough, we have some problem. So I saw something interesting is to keep participants interested. So the social information we have to implement has to be something continue and not one shot, I think, because everything will keep moving for the next year. So it will be interesting to have a good feedback also to the population and to the future members of the community. And the TSO, Fabrice explained that better than I can do, I think. But also we have to work together with the DSO and the TSO in this transition and in this topic. Voila, so thank you, Jan, for your feedback, and I try to make mine. Maybe Rita, you can make a short comment on what we said, what you saw. Yeah, if you have something to add more.
Yes, thank you, Arno. It's very interesting, this mural, and I think we shouldn't forget that energy communities is very nascent. We are really at the beginning of it. And what we are seeing is basically the shift between a top-bottom organization to something more like a bottom-up and organization of the energy. And I really liked earlier that Ruben quoted the book of Elinor Ostrom about the governance of the common, because there's very much this idea grounded that when commons are managed by the communities, then they get destroyed. But Elinor Ostrom just made the complete other point. And I think energy communities are really much that taking back the governance of our energy is a huge opportunity. So we are just at the beginning of it. Policies are not ready yet completely, but this is completely ongoing and it's going to the right way. Technologies are as well, and we're still at the beginning. It requires most of the time smart meters, expensive software, expensive installation at home. So that we shouldn't forget as well that it should be good opportunities for to tackle fuel poverty. So I think it's all about the narrative given by the energy communities around the fact that this is a positive society shift, and then that still paying taxes, still paying a little bit more than just for your own consumption is also, as a society, tackling climate change, fuel poverty, etc. And yes, I can see the idea of that there's too many participants, it's complex, maybe TSOs, DSOs wouldn't be on board, etc. But it relates again to the positive narrative, showing step by step that, that this is possible. Some DSOs are already quite advanced and facilitate energy communities. In some other European countries are less advanced, but they look at what's going on in the most progressive zones. So I think that's it for me.
Yes, thank you very much, Rita. That's very interesting. Of course, with your more macro view to focus on this kind of comment and more society and global as well. Ruben, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Can you maybe also comment quickly what you saw now?
I'm mainly thinking back of let's say, the question mark that Jan Gio left on the table is whether energy communities can reduce costs. I think let's say, can they reduce costs by taking back control? And I think they actually can, in the sense that if you look at the energy system today, also the energy system today is extremely complex and involves a lot of parties. You have a lot of suppliers, a lot of the developers, the owners of assets. And the more parties you have, I mean, every party needs profit. The supplier needs profit, the generator needs profit, the investor needs profit. And by taking back control, of course, the less parties needs profit, the more profitable or the lower the cost you can develop a system. And I think here there is an opportunity for energy communities, in the sense that by taking back control of some services or some assets, they can indeed reduce the cost by keeping the margin from themselves. Of course, there is a big but, in the sense that the but is that in order to have this margin, you need to be as efficient as the market. As your small community, you have to be as efficient in developing renewables as the bigger players. So you have to be as efficient acting as a supplier as the bigger players. Because if your community is very complex and is inefficient, you're hoping to make a more cost-effective solution, but actually you're increasing the costs just because you are small and you don't know how to develop renewables. And I've seen this in some examples that I talked to people from an energy corporation, and they were very proud to develop PV on some facilities. And then if I ask them how much did the actual installation cost, and then I sometimes hear prices that are 50% above market price, just because they don't know, they're not a professional organization in developing renewables. And I think this is where let's say the threat is of energy communities in this side, in the sense that they have to compete with a very professionalized, specialized system. And I think there should be somewhere a middle way where they work together. And I think this is somewhere the goal, in the sense that it's not energy communities against the market, or it's not the market against energy communities. They somehow have to find a way to work together and to use each other's strengths. And the strength of an energy community is finding stability or finding acceptance for projects. And the private sector or the technology sector, their specialty is bringing technology and bringing assets at the lowest cost possible. And I think if you combine those two, you have some value.
Yes.
And one reflection I still had is that I often hear that the DSO has to facilitate energy communities. For me, it's always a bit a yes and a no, in the sense that if I hear that the DSO has to facilitate energy communities, I often hear in the background the idea that the goal is to have batteries, but batteries are never a goal. The goal is to have more renewables at the lowest cost and to have lower energy demand. And a battery often doesn't fit in this picture. Often power can be distributed, power can be sold, and only in a very, very, very little amount of cases, a battery is somewhere a cost-effective solution. So I think the DSO has to just facilitating in giving access to the grid to whatever party, whatever it is organized, but it should not try to optimize its access to the grid in a sense linked to an energy community, because it might leave out all the people that are not part of the community. While the grid is there for everybody, and the goal is not to have parallel grids or so. And that's it, I think.
Thank you very much for this message. Again, as global, and of course, we have to discuss and to work together with all actors of our ecosystem. That's also the goal of the cluster. So that's good. You point that. Thank you very much. Well, we are a little bit late on the timing, but I think that for the end we will maybe have some gain of time. I will maybe give back the floor to my friend Jan to introduce the second workshop. If you're okay, Jan.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Thank you, Renaud. Very interesting discussions. I'll quickly check if I can share my screen. Yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So our second workshop will be about the opportunities for the energy communities, but more on a business case, business model opportunities. And I prepared a, now we would like to do that via a business model canvas. I prepared already, I'm hoping or thinking that most of you are well aware of what the business model canvas is and have been working with it before. These are 9 topics which are related to business and have interactions with each other, explaining your business, and is a nice way to consider or to think if of how your business can be organized. It basically can start off with any of the 9 boxes and start thinking from that topic to the other ones. Usually people start with the value proposition and think of what kind of customers they will need, how can they get to the customers, and how will they link their customers to them. On the other hand, they need key partners to bring that value proposal. They need to activate or to connect to the key partners and expect some activities to do activities towards the key partners. But at the same time, they also need people and resources to be able to bring the value proposal to the customers and collaborate with the key partners. And in the end, yeah, it will cost some money, but it will also lead to some income. And what I've done here is just a very quick example of a collective self-consumption, at least the way you can think of an apartment building and how people can work together within such an apartment building where you have your apartment owners who are part of the energy community, which is the proposition is then that they have they generate their own renewable energy and create some social cohesion between them. And a visualization of the generation is your distribution channel to the customers, and you have your relation within a association of co-owners. You have to collaborate with an energy supplier, and you have the DSO. That's also your key activity of the energy community and the billing afterwards. You need the assets of the renewable energy, and maybe an energy community manager, either as a resource or as a key partner. This is also part of the cost as well as depreciation of your assets. And as a source of income, you can think of the commodity price of electricity that is a little bit lower than the general commodity price from an external supplier. I know there are many items missing, and what I are proposing now to start off doing in the mural, which
Yes,
I think
share
is
the link.
also, the link is in the chat box, is to think of a energy community the way you envisage it, in just how you think of it. Is it an energy community on a neighborhood level? Is it an industrial site level? Is it also collective self-consumption, or any other way that you consider can be potential for a self-consumption, so it can be potential for an energy community? And how would of which topics could be included in the 9 boxes in such a business model canvas? That's what we're very interesting to discuss with you during the next 10-15 minutes, or at least that you fill out the next 10-15 minutes, and we will discuss afterwards. That's yeah, how we are planning to do the next workshop.
Thank you, Jan. So I invite you to use the link that Renaud has shared in the Zoom chats. And so like the other time, we come back to our second screen and mural 1. So you have the same business model canvas that Jan has presented. And so I invite you to share some ideas in the different part of the value chain. You can start wherever you want. And I let you for few minutes, let's say 2, 3, 5 minutes, just to start to write. And after we select maybe 1 or 2 ideas, just to make some discussion. So I see that you are working quite great. You have started with the left one, a good action. And with the review stream as well. For the key partners, I see ESCO and aggregators for sure. And I've maybe that's raising me a question, maybe for Rita. When we see that we have to own our assets as an energy community. It's part of the directive from European Commission. Really, the idea is that the energy communities is owning the assets. Do you see some business cases with partners as ESCO or third financing parties to do the job, or it's really a barrier that we cannot go through?
We are seeing examples of third parties facilitating the ownership of assets. For example, just on top of my mind, I can think about Iberdrola, what they are doing with in Madrid with Smart Solar. They finance the assets, but then the energy savings, the monthly energy savings are basically giving some rooms for participants to pay back those assets. So at the end, the participants still have less of an energy bill and still acquiring slowly the assets, the generating assets. So that is a solution, third-party financing, helping the energy communities financing the assets.
And do you see some regulatory problems? Because if we really read the European Commission text, it's not allowed, these third financing parties. For sure, we see in a project, we try to see where third-party financing can give the the owning of the structure, but just receiving the fruits, let's say, of the assets. So it's quite complicated way of doing, but we see that in Spain or in other countries, they try to overcome this problem. And it's really one issue that we have in maybe 5 or 6 projects that we have right now.
Yeah, it's an issue, definitively. But I think regulation is I do not know if the regulation will be adapted to those lessons learned, because we regulate as we learn about the market. So maybe that would be something that we will see in the future, but yeah, definitively that is at the moment one of the risks is that energy community could become a rich people tool, and is exactly the opposite of what we want to see. So definitively the capex, but sometimes it starts like that and it gets democratized as well. So
yeah, and as well, it's like the comment from Ruben that said that the professional ones are the ones are private and could be the third finance parties or private partners. So they are key partners for sure. You have so few players and say financial institution for leasing, ESCO, aggregators, investment companies. So we see that they are key partners. The financial one, because we are speaking about capex, but in the same time we see maybe the problem of the regulation over there. Ruben, if you can add something, because I see that you have put your camera.
Well, what I wanted to say is that I wouldn't restrict myself to what's allowed according to the definition in a European law, in the sense that we are working in a European law that is liberalized. Everybody is allowed to organize themselves the way they want to. Also today you are allowed, even before there was a law of energy communities, you were allowed to start a supplier. You were allowed to together buy an asset of a wind turbine. You were allowed to start an energy corporation. And also corporations can just do third-party investing. So I wouldn't restrict myself to if it's allowed or not. At the end, this just defines whether you're allowed to put a stamp that says, I am an official energy community. But at the end, it's fulfilling a need, and that's the most important one. It's fulfilling the need of developing renewable energy and reducing the emissions.
Yeah. So if I go to the key activities, we see the visualization of energy flow. So it's let's say maybe the part of smart meters and monitoring and so on. The IoT communication. The provisioning for network operation center. So yeah, it could create some different, for sure, activities over there. Nothing right now for key resources needed. I would suppose that we need some capex, and it's very a challenge over there because it's always with renewables we need capex, and here we create a new grids, new softwares, new and we need some capex in the beginning of the projects, and it's always a problem with renewables. So if we go to the value proposition, we see social cohesion. We see a link with the climate plan for the cities. We see the increased grid efficiency. Quite interesting, the air quality, and I see here as well in the revenue streams. So less CO2, better air quality, linked to the raise of the energy communities, and it's linked for sure with the presentation of Ruben that has presented the CO2 link, interesting link that could be created with the energy sector. Maybe if the people that has wrote the link with climate plan of the cities, maybe they can take the floor to explain what could be the link with the cities, because it's not clear for me, the link with cities, because we are speaking a lot of cooperatives, energy cooperatives, but what could be the link of a cities? Is it a facilitator, or they can be another role? Maybe it's that someone can add something about the link with the cities.
Yes, hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're from the city of Mechelen, and we're piloting an energy community in a parking building where we also want to put a vehicle to grid pilot, if possible. We would like to experiment with this because if in the future we can extend more energy communities with more greener energy everywhere in the city, maybe even connected with batteries of electrical cars, we think we can have better results in reducing CO2.
And you see yourself as a city, because it's interesting, as a facilitator of this type of project, or you want to be involved in the energy community in itself?
This is not yet clear. It's, we're still searching a lot.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we try to make some pilots, and really we see that the cities are really, they want to jump in this topic, but they don't know how. And we try to help our cities in Wallonia. But for sure, because the regulation is not totally settled, it's quite difficult to see let's say the value proposition of the cities in this topic. So for sure you can be a key partner, but where is the value for the cities other than that to be a facilitator? So really it's a question for maybe for everyone. So if someone want to add something about that, the floor is yours for sure. But as well, thank you for be there as a city. It's very interesting to have different type of players in the room. So in the value proposition, we see the flexibility market, and it's this as well with the revenue streams, because we see a potential link with the CRM market, so the capacity reserve or the reserve market that's already there with Elia R1 or R2. For sure, it's a potential revenue over there. That could be linked with the self-consumption. After that, you have self-consumed your electricity. A part of your battery can be used for the reserve market. So there is a business case maybe over there. If we see the key resources, we have now some propositions. So the sensor meters. I remind you that we have 2 websites that are managed by the cluster Flux50 and TWEED. For TWEED is Ma Conso sous la loupe, and for Flux50 is Mac Metoslim. So it's the same website, but in the 2 languages. And the objective of this website is to promote all the meters, smart meters, and the technology that can use the smart meters, because we see that a potential barrier and really a threat over the energy communities is the rollout of the smart meters, because we need it for sure. And we see as other subjects sometimes people that are against for a number of reasons, but we need to prove that there are opportunities and values, and not just for the grid operator and for the suppliers, not just to make the bill, let's say. And so really there is a huge work over there. So it's for sure it's key resources, but it's in the same time maybe a potential barrier. For the cost structure, we see a potential problem, let's say, the maintenance of installation of the hardware and software investment. They must be paid. So it's part for sure of the business model that has to be provided. Service fees for use solution for the software, the billing, but the balancing. So everything must be worked, let's say. And so to summarize the cost structure, we need to put some software and hardware, and to find a way to bill it and to bill to the consumers in the smart way possible. If I go to the right, the upright, the customer relationship. So a good model is to make customer relationship with association of co-owners. So it's totally linked with the customer segments of apartments. Let's say it's really a good opportunities over there. And so maybe the first business case of energy communities is the co-owners and the building, let's say, because they are already as a form, as an energy community in a sort of way. Other customer relationship is the link with electric cars, the social cohesion, barbecue, coffee session, and so on. So let's speak about energy with the neighborhoods and the people. And let's say the power to the people that were mentioned during the first session. So we see in the customer segments the offices and the link with the retail for sure. There is some opportunities over there, and the mix of B2B and B2C communities. It's raised one question for sure. It's the link with medium voltage, low voltage, and high voltage separation. And when we see some regulation, we see that we can only create an energy communities with low voltage with median voltage, and just to make an energy community between two voltage, it's very difficult because the responsibilities are different, the regulation are different. So it's raised a lot of questions, but for sure it's an opportunity over there. And for the revenue streams, I've already take this part. So maybe a global comment for our two experts of today. I start with Ruben because we started with Rita before. Ruben, do you have you some comments about the lines and the topics that have been raised here in the mural?
I have two thoughts when I look at the revenue streams and the, let's say, the CI and R1, R2. I mean, it's something, it's a revenue stream that today is only available for large organizations because you need a certain size to be, let's say, to be allowed to enter the market, in the sense that it's a market which is counting in many megawatts to close to gigawatts. So that means that, okay, if you're a household, you're not able to participate because you're counting in kilowatts. And let's say reorganizing itself, let's say as a community that will act as an aggregator, indeed would be a way to enter this market. Of course, you have to always reflect that there is a reason that today households are not part of this market, in the sense that to connect to these markets, you need a lot of hardware and software. Just to connect a wind turbine or a large company requires 10,000 euro of hardware. And that means if you want to connect as an energy community, you will also need to invest all this hardware to be eligible for these markets. So you should really think, is it worth installing this CapEx just to unlock this revenue stream, while this revenue stream doesn't really have a lot of, there is no real link with the potential value propositions that you can foresee for an energy community. And I think for the value proposition, I miss one, and this is the one that I mentioned in my slides. And that's stability and clarity, in the sense that, just to give you an example, and I know the Belgians will know this case, just in Flanders, this year we will have 4 different tariffs for our grid use, just because laws changed and then the court came back on laws. And there are 3 different ways of how to buy and sell electricity. I think organizing yourself as an energy community could create stability in the complex world of an energy system, that you internally try to arrange very clear rules that will be the same for 10, 15, 20 years. And that you organize yourself in this way, but of course then without moving costs or without moving taxes to non-members. And I think this stability is what many people in the electricity, I mean, when it comes to electricity, that they are looking for, just because there are so many things changing so fast lately, that, I mean, okay, for engineers like us, we can keep up with it, but I think many people will start getting lost if we keep changing the rules at the same speed that we are changing them the last years.
Yeah, so it's really the question that the energy market has been liberalized, and so everything is open. You can change of suppliers, and the change of suppliers must stay. But in the same time, we want to create some stability market. And so it's changing in the other way to stabilize some investment capex and so on. So you pointing the problems really great. Thank you, Ruben, for this input. Rita, maybe do you have some inputs of this mural?
Yes, I would say in value proposition something lacking as well, which is very often lowering the energy bill. is not always obvious, but when we take into account the energy prices that will rise over time, then this is something quite necessary to as well. In terms of customer relationships, I would maybe question the terms of customer, thinking that the purpose of energy communities is to transform customer by members and having this sense of ownership, not necessarily physical ownership, having shares into assets, but ownership into the energy in general and the energy question in general. And this, if that is well stimulated, then prosumers, I would say, would be also quite valuable into keep on giving proposition for the value proposition and making it evolving over time as market evolve. It's true that the uncertainties around current policies are quite high and quite difficult. So it will require a high level of adaptation and knowledge acquisition for the next 5-10 years, I would say. So having efficient channel for binding those customers, prosumers together and making sure that there's innovation also coming from there, that I think is quite necessary as well. Maybe, yeah, I see visualization of the generated renewable energy. I would say also visualization of insight into what people consume and how and why. At the moment, this is still not in everybody's home, because if they wanted, that would be quite expensive still for the average consumer. But that would be key as well. I completely agree with Ruben around the flexibility market. I wouldn't get too bogged down, because we're seeing some aggregator trying to use the residential segment, and there's very little value and very high capex. I think mostly balancing the loads within the energy communities is the real value is there. Optimizing when there will be more EVs participating as well, that could be a real value into optimizing the system in itself.
Yeah, we see that the European Commission is asking for cost and benefits analysis for each business case that we can provide, and say if there is a possibility to put smart meters in the beginning and the cost analysis were for the smart meters, and now it's more for the energy communities, and to prove that there is a value for the grid. Sometimes maybe we see the grid benefits as the only way to prove, but I see a lot of others benefits for the energy communities. And if we just close our eyes on the grid, it causes problems, because energy communities, it's really a way to provide some sustainabilization of energy to the people. And there is the one word that has been said this morning: acceptance. We see in all studies that we need more renewables, and the NIMBY impact is maybe the biggest problem for our sector. And so acceptance may be the biggest word. We can be the best engineers, we can be the best financial players. If we don't prove and we don't make accept the project, it won't be a success, and the energy transition will be stuck. And so, and it was a conclusion of a presentation of IEA, so International Agency of Energy. They see the main problem is not techniques, it's not financial, is the NIMBY impact of local, and so to be against the project of renewables. And I think energy communities is providing a way to to make acceptance over there. So yeah, so thank you for your inputs. I think we will we can make a picture of the mural, and we can send to the old participants to have the information, and you can go through it, the different propositions that have been made today. So really thanks all the participants of today. It was a new way to speak about the energy communities and to make more involvement of the room. It's sometimes complicated, but I think we have quite succeed to have some inputs from your part. So really thank you to have worked this morning with us. I thank Rita and Ruben for their very interesting presentation that will be sent with, if you agree, of course, you can make some part, but if you don't have some comments, we will send, I think, today the presentation. So just let us approve or not just after the meeting. So it's the conclusion of the 6 packs series. I don't have any slides here just to say. It was a quite interesting journey because 6 times 6 morning speaking about the energy communities is quite a challenging way to do it. For sure, in total, we have been with more than 200 people in the different room. So we see that there are a lot of appetite in this topic, and with Flux50 and TWEED, we are really there to make it happen, to see all the project pilots. We have financed a series of projects, but for sure we need to go to market right now. So as TWEED, we have financed last year the 25 million euros of pilot projects that have been launched last year for 2 or 3 years. So we will receive some information to get inputs on the market, but for sure we need to go to the market without subsidies right now. And as Ruben has said, we cannot build some cases that have some incentives. So we really need backup on the market right now. And just to conclude in a global way, we have Frederic from Flux50 that will give some insights. It's about energy communities, but it is well about energy markets. And just before the lunch, it will give some really global insight about energy in global. Frederic? We see your presentation. You may be on mute. Yes.
Thank you. Also from my behalf, my congratulations for sitting the 6-pack out. We would have liked, of course, to see you in person, visiting Flanders, visiting Belgium, visiting the other countries of the consortia, the clusters within the COSME project, but unfortunately it's not possible. The initial idea was to create an overview of the 6 days, which is clearly impossible. So I just wanted to give you some last insights based on what I learned today, what I learned previously. In the sense that when I was still studying a long time ago, I had a professor who was calling energy boring stuff. And just to say it's not just somebody, he's now chairman of the board of the Flemish regulator. But back in 1996, actually in the energy world, nothing much is changing. And the same professor needs to go retiring this year, and he really is quite pissed because now everything is moving that fast, giving him quite some academic challenges. Because there have been quite some important, let's say, changes. I'm not going to dive in this one, but just to give you an idea, Ruben told that it is a closed system. Being an engineer myself, you always need to define the system, whether it's closed or not. So What I see actually happening due to the previous slide, the emphasis of Europe on having that zero carbon, that carbon neutrality, having that introduction of renewables into the system, I do see that it might, that the Belgian system might not be that closed as we expect it to be. It might not be really an entirely zero-sum game. What we have seen last year actually in Flanders and Belgium, and excuse me for the Flemish talk here, the Flemish articles here, Flanders needed to buy 22 million euros of Danish, not Danish energy, but yeah, let's say the fact that we were short in producing renewable energy. On a federal level, Belgium also needs to pay several millions of euros. And if we don't do something, actually those amounts will only rise. So I think it's also a policy decision whether we want to pay for that, or that we want to external parties, or that we want to have those kind of resources staying within the local community. So I don't believe it's entirely a closed system, win-lose type of situation, given the fact that there is a very, very important, let's say, target set from the European Commission that we need to face anyway, whether we like it or not. And in the end, what I lacked a little bit is the consumer. What's in it for me? And there has been a strong emphasis on, let's say, the fact of price, but I didn't hear the effect of comfort that much in the entire analysis, while I think that also the comfort thing and the easiness of those consumers to use the technology is very, very important. We have spent quite some time learning people to have their dishwasher turning on during the night tarification scheme. Well, changing that behavior might seem very simple, but it's not easy at all. So whatever we are searching for, and I guess that you, during the 6 days, you learned that we do have quite some technology that's not yet fixed, but that there will still need be some improvements to make. We will see, you have learned that there are some ideas, some business cases already that have been, let's say, that are not valid anymore due to certain new insights. But still we are looking for that sweet spot where an energy community, where the business case is, where the sweet spot is to make it really fly. I don't think at this moment, also after what I heard today, after what I heard during the 6 days, that we found already that sweet spot where we can find what the consumer loves, what is good for the world, and what we are companies as academics, as intermediates are good at to deliver. And it's also a very important thing to see that we are working in a very difficult market. As Ruben pointed out, the number of stakeholders are is very large. So changing such a system is not something that happens overnight. But in the end, I do believe that we are going back to the future. When I look back at the history of the energy system, actually, there are things that are repeating. I like this machine actually quite a lot. It's you can find it here in Leuven in the thermodynamics building. It's actually a motor, one of the first generators that has been built in Flanders. It dates from 1926. So we need another 5 years to have it turning into the incredible age of 100 years, and it's still used from time to time actually. So it's running still once or twice a year to conduct some measurements on this type of machine. And actually, back in 1926, those kind of machines appeared typically at hospitals and at blacksmith sites, where they were used to automate the actual own working. But what you could see happening is that those machines got connected to a local grid very, very near to them, and that there was actually an energy community built around the hospital, built around the blacksmith, not only involving those specific, let's say, blacksmiths, but also involving the citizens around and creating small energy communities. And it was only after the Second World War, when a lot of infrastructure was actually demolished, that the actual concept of that, what we know as a distribution grid now, was realized. The first time that the DSO appeared was actually in around 1956. By 56 on a regional level, on a, let's say, global regional level. So I do believe that there is quite some potential and some business cases. There are actually several business cases, but it's still very difficult to find that reason for energy communities to turn into practice. And old ways won't open new doors. So we need to think out of the box. And when I'm saying we, it's not only we as companies, but it's also the DSO, it's also the TSO, it is also the policymakers, because it is one thing that we have learned and that we are still learning is that it's not possible to provide new technologies and to have new technologies imported based on old rules. And we see that also the lack of rules and the lack of predictability in the system at this moment makes it very difficult, on one hand, for companies to create technology, and on the other hand, for communities to launch itself. I'm not saying that every community is only doing things out of, let's say, financial profit ideas, but at least you don't want to pay more as other ones because you are acting inside a community. That's at least the impression I have. And at this moment, that predictability of the system is really hindering a lot of the possible energy communities that I know that are in preparation. I do think that we are going through what is called the Gartner hype cycle. It's something that happens with all hyped technology or all hyped concepts. We have had, or we are in a peak of inflated expectations, and when the real possibilities come into practice are shown, and when we see how legislation is handled, we are going to a trough of disillusionment, whether we like it or not. And I do hope that together we can find those sweet spots, that we can deliver those systems that bring us into a slope of enlightenment. And in the end, we need to find that stable reason for energy communities as being part of the entire system, to deliver together that vision, that need for a stable, performant, resilient energy system with as less as costs as possible, and as much as renewable sources introduced as possible. And I think that's the real game and the real goal of providing those energy communities. Perhaps before my last slide, one remark, and it's not unknown. It's something that has been known for ages, that we overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run, and that we underestimate the effect in the long run that it might have. So I'm quite happy to see that there is still quite some drive beyond creating energy communities. I'm quite hopeful that on the long run that the effect will cannot be underestimated. And in the meantime, I'm still searching for that aha erlebnis. I'm looking forward to see all your further activities in this context. I'm looking forward to see some other brilliant experience being made and some good examples showing up. And the only thing I can say is that also after this six-pack, the future is yours. And we really need those pioneers to stand up and to do things and show where the sweet spot will be of energy communities. And with that, I would like also to end my last thoughts. I wish you all the best during your further exploration of the energy system and of those energy communities. We are always at your disposal if you have questions, if there are some specific insights, if we can help you setting up a projects, don't hesitate to contact us. That's the reason why we are there. There is still the networking session afterwards for those who subscribed. And the only thing I can say is, yeah, normally I would say have a safe journey home, which is not applicable here, but have a nice day further on and hope to see you, to meet you in person somewhat later. Bye.